First and foremost, thank you for being here. And secondly, yay. How cool is this? Man, okay, so first thing I want to say is my name, Aina Williams, or Aina Ifetayo Oyewole-Williams. And I am a graduate of Trinity College, class of 96, 25 years ago, which is hilarious because I look so young, you know? I just don't believe it, but it's true. My knees say different. And I want to preface this with a couple of things, and you guys have the chat that you can ask questions and respond with whenever I ask you guys a question. But first and foremost, I am a non-judgmental person. So you're going to hear things I'm going to talk to you about that may end up in eliciting strong reactions within you. And that is a beautiful thing. It's a sign that you are alive. You are welcome to put whatever you want in chat. Ask me any questions if you want me to dive into more of whatever. All of it is totally fine. Please be free in your questions or comments or what have you. But just know that everything that I've experienced in my life has had a beautiful impact on me. I don't take anything for granted, and I definitely don't feel like things should not have happened. I don't prescribe to that ideology of it just shouldn't be that way. You know, it's a denial of what is, basically, when you're using the word should. It's just sort of bypassing feeling the way you actually feel about the thing and moving through it. I live in Seattle. I've been in Seattle, Washington since 2006. And I love it here. Made a home here. Have a couple of businesses, indoor cycling studio, meditation and fitness center, which is where we are right now, where I'm filming. And I also have a coaching business, which I've had for a really long time. I've been a rowing coach and a life coach since graduating. And for those who remember me in college, I was an RA and in that world for, my freshman year, I was what they call it, a dorm council, something or other. Basically, I was like a narc. I was like, what are you doing? You don't drink in the hallways, you know, that kind of shit. So anyway, today we're talking about living in truth, why we should all come out. And so I'm going to give you some information, but I want to know if I want you to direct some of it, right? So I'm going to tell you some stories about me, and whatever comes up for you, or questions or comments or whatever you feel, please, again, like I said, you can put it in the chat, raise your hand, whatever you want to do. And if you want to be on screen, you are welcome to. And also, this is being recorded. It is going to be, once we open it up for questions, we are going to take that off, right? Okay. Did you want to say something, Yarel? Because I know I just started to chat before you got a chance to.
Oh, well, you're doing my job and I love it. So I want to say thank you. I mean, this is exactly why you're here, is because you are Aina. And since I met you back in college 25 years ago, you represented a woman that I wanted to know and that I admired. And yet, you know, we never truly connected just due to the community and our interests, and also being young. So, you know, I've been able to watch your continued growth. I've even experienced certain discomforts as with some of your words. You know, they've hit hard in terms of reflection and in my own actions. And for that, I've always admired you, and I hold you in thought when it comes to truth. If I need to know something, you're one of the people that I look to. And so as the Women's Leadership Council programming chair, when we were thinking about, you know, who could we help us represent a community that typically isn't seen, you're the only person I know. And on the one hand, it's wonderful, but on the other hand, it's sad knowing that within such a large and diverse community,
Mhm.
that you're the only one that I could contact.
Mhm.
But yet I'm hoping that this will show, especially those that are attending, hopefully you'll let your friends, fellow alumni know that we are seeking, and I apologize for the doggy in the background who's upset that I won't open the door. We are seeking to do programming to make sure that we see each and every person. So I don't know if you've seen our past programs, but it's quite eclectic. And it is based on conversation, and it's based on the needs that are brought to us. And so I want to make sure that we say thank you, Aina. And on behalf of the Women's Leadership Council, we hope that you enjoy this programming and that you give us feedback when you receive the link for the survey in a couple of days, because your words matter, your opinions matter, your participation matters. And with that, just reiterating what Aina said in regards to recording, there might be points where you will feel safer in communicating once we stop recording. So I invite you to, one, let us know, please invite me onto the screen, because right now we're in webinar style, but we can invite you into this screen. The second thing is you can send me a private message saying, I want to share, but either you share for me or I will share when we stop recording. Otherwise, the chat I will be monitoring for Aina so that Aina can do her thing. With that, I give it right back to you. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I hope that you will participate fully.
All right, so I'm just looking over. So my camera's here, my computer's here. So if you see me look to the side, because I'm reading what you guys are writing. And hey, Terry Lee, you were in Seattle. We missed each other. We were here, we overlapped 3 years. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to start a little bit about how I was raised, because I think that's important, right? It kind of tells you a lot about a person. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio with my mom and my sister. And my mother, in third grade, I had a crush on my French teacher. I was in school, I had a French teacher because I was in some sort of like advanced thing where you either take Spanish or French. And I took French, and because I was very political growing up, and I was like, I'm getting out of this country, it sucks. That's what I thought when I was young. Reagan was in office, and I was like, this is awful. And so I was like, I'm gonna go to France. I'm pretty sure that's a better place. So I took French, and my teacher's name was Mrs. Worthy. And which is super interesting, actually, because I was in love with Mrs. Worthy. She had she was kind of like a 50-ish, like 1950-ish housewife, like outfit, clothing, like kind of like A-line skirts, and very just nurturing. And she spoke French, and she had this beautiful hair. And I was like, she's like the most amazing thing. So I told my mother about her, and probably that I was in love with her, or something what an 8-year-old or 7-year-old would say. And my mother said, oh, that's normal. It's normal to like girls and boys. And I remember at that point, from that point forward, I was normal. And that was it. That was it. I always believed my mother. I was very much like, she knew the world was pretty stupid comparatively, is what I thought. My mother is an actual genius, so that was helpful. She's super smart. And I was used to being in a world, and still am, where what we know isn't what we're shown, right? And we're always sort of there's a little bit of conflict, or a lot, that goes on between what we know to be real and true and what our society tells us is real and true and what we're supposed to do. So it wasn't confusing to me that I had to be a certain way in the external world, because even though I understood that that wasn't real, we were playing a game. My mother always told me that, believe none of what you read and half of what you see. So I was always a skeptic. And she also taught me to not change my opinion because of other people. And she was very assertive about that. My sister as well, who's older than I am. So with that understanding, I was very comfortable with the fact that I always was attracted to people. I like people or I don't like people. And that was just it. I think boys are beautiful, girls are beautiful. It didn't really matter. I always dated boys up until college. And so when I got to college, when I got to Trinity, and I remember whenever I was looking for colleges, I was in Cleveland in school, and one of my guidance counselors said, there's this really nice school in Connecticut that I visited. Trinity had done this push to get more diversity. This is I started school in 1992. So like in the early 90s, late 80s, they were trying to figure out how to like not make it just totally all white. And so he had gone on a trip and Trinity was on the trip, and he told me about it. And I was like, Connecticut? Are there any Black people in Connecticut? He was like, yeah, there are. I didn't realize Hartford was a lot of Black folks and a lot of issues. It used to be. I know it's a little bit different now, but at any rate, so Trinity, I went there, had a wonderful experience on my visitation, and decided to go. In my freshman year, I ended up doing what you would think you would do, like what you're supposed to do. I had a boyfriend that was Black, and he was beloved in the community, and good student, all of the good things, all the things that you're supposed to do. I'm also the daughter of a revolutionary on both sides. My mother is and my father is. He's a founding member of a group called the Last Poets. And so I grew up in a very militant and educated family, and understanding the struggles of Black Americans in this country. And at the same time, in a world that's also about entertainment, because he's kind of famous. So he was at award shows or at various things. So it's kind of this interesting mix of a diverse population of people. So knowing how to navigate various worlds, growing up poor in the projects and welfare, sometimes being in New York with rich and famous, and all of the in between. So in college, dating who I was dating and doing what I was supposed to be doing, I started rowing and became part of the residential life program, amongst other jobs. I worked a million jobs because I was poor as dirt. And that ended, that year, my freshman year ended with me being in the first boat on the rowing team, and me waking up to my then boyfriend raping me and me becoming pregnant, and me waking up and realizing this is fucked up and now what I'm gonna do, and then getting an abortion, going to practice that same day and getting kicked out of the first boat because it was a bad idea to go to practice that same day. And then having my freshman year sort of end with actually going back home whenever it was over, my mother being in an abusive relationship and kicking me out, and then moving back on campus after freshman year, and being on campus that summer. And I think I worked in development, which is a very strange place to work, because literally my job was to call families that had a certain income. So like when you work in development office, you literally know everybody's money. Like you see everybody's business, and you call based on what people make and so forth, what's public, it's all public, and asking for money, right? Because that's what you do in the development office, is about raising money. So it's a very crazy, and then breaking up with my boyfriend. And I want to communicate this very clearly to everybody. We're still friends. And I was writing notes, and I was like, you'll have to wait for the book as to what the choices he made that got him to that point, and what choices I made to move me from that point forward. But the point is, it all happened for a reason. I have no regrets, and I have no lingering feelings of what would be the word, wanting some sort of retribution, I guess it was, because it got me to this point, and I appreciate everything it has. So from there, then I remember after getting kicked out, having an abortion, having been raped, I was like, you know what? Maybe only dating Black guys is not the thing to do. I mean, literally, it was a conscious choice in the sense of going, you know, maybe I should not be so rigid because my family was one of you. This is kind of expected. So I ended up dating a white guy, and started receiving really negative responses on campus, actually, from the Black community. Not from everybody, but just a few, not even a ton of people, but just a few, you know. And I remember he and I were, my boyfriend at the time and I were kind of close together, and we got an apple core food was started to be chucked at us by some guys. And it's super funny too, because I honestly have no idea who the guys were. And as you know, Trinity is tiny and you know everybody for the most part, but I think it was, I was too much in shock to know who it was and to pay attention to what was going on, but we knew what it was about. And in that relationship, he and I both received a lot of flack, not just at Trinity, but you know, when we had traveled around, it was very interesting to be in that position where it was all of a sudden it's like really aggressive. I'd had plenty of racist stuff happen before, but being with him was whenever I received more of it. It wasn't until my senior year where I was single long enough to be able to sort of explore my sexuality that I ended up having a girlfriend. And she was a rower on my team who lived off campus. And so she would stay at my place whenever we have regattas that we have to leave early in the morning for. And I remember I had a crush on her, and I think I told her about a dream that I had, and the rest is history. And she was closeted and didn't have any desire to not be, because she wasn't, you know, she felt that she liked me, but not necessarily all women. We just had something between us. I knew that us not being able to be out, because I felt normal and I didn't feel worried so much. I had been a part of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance on campus since my freshman year, pretty much. So I was pretty okay with being myself. She was not. That ended toward the end of my senior year, to which I drowned myself by getting under all of my exes, which was fun. Those were the days. At any rate, so from that point forward, that my experience at Trinity around my own sexuality was one where if you were not straight, you knew who wasn't, right? People would ask me every now and then, like, so what are you? And I'd say, I'm Aina. And that was generally how I've always responded. And it's still how I respond to that question. What are you? Like, do you like girls, do you like guys? I'm like, I like people, you know? So at Trinity, there wasn't a place to go necessarily that was just open and outside of the alliance. It wasn't even called like the club. It was like an alliance. Like, it's for everyone who wants to support. And the reason I felt comfortable going was because by being a part of the club it didn't mean that you were actually like labeling yourself. So that part was really nice. But also it was just information about the times as well, right? From that point forward, after college, I dated men, women. Usually if a guy was annoying, I'd date a woman. If a girl was, you know, back and forth. And then I ended up getting married. I got married to a woman in the early aughts. And I remember, you know, coming out to my colleagues. I worked at a mortgage company at the time, long story. And I remember being super nervous about it. And then when I told them, people were fine, they were chill. And then at one point, a few weeks later, because we had gotten engaged. And a few weeks later, they said, we have this impromptu meeting in the conference room, we gotta all come. So I was like, oh God. So I go to the conference room, and it was a wedding shower that they had thrown for me, which was really cool. And I'm pretty sure I cried heavily around the love that I received. Now, obviously that relationship didn't last, and I cried more after we broke up, and I was still actually at the mortgage company. And everybody was so unbelievably supportive and loving. And it was just so powerful, that experience. Because I'd also been in situations where I hadn't said anything about who I was with, or you know, back in the day, you use pronouns they to mask that they were same sex, you know. It was an easy way to not be in a position where you have to disclose personal information to people that you didn't feel safe with. At this point now, 47, I think the last time I had a boyfriend when I was 30, I'm pretty sure. I don't come out really in the same way. I just introduce people to whoever I'm dating, right? Generally it's a female, you know, usually. So it's not something that I do or get nervous about. It happens all the time. People who don't know me, if they are in the same space as me and my girlfriend or what have you, but I don't necessarily feel the need or the urge to come out. But I am privileged in so many ways because one, I own my own businesses. I don't work for anyone. So when you're coming to meet me, you're usually coming into my space, right? Or if you're hiring me, I'm coming into your space to assist you in something. So there's something you saw in me that you want to be a part of your world, which makes it much, much easier for me. For those people, and I've been there, when you work somewhere, you're in a position where you are a subordinate, or your paycheck or your life or your family is determining your future, it's a much different world. I have a lot of clients, and so I'll give you a little bit of information about what I do besides this gym. So my work outside of this gym is I coach people. My clients range from founders of billion-dollar companies to stay-at-home moms. Everything from moving their bodies to people who are dying of cancer. And the work that I do is spiritual, and it takes the form of movement, communication, meditation, many different ways. It just depends. And it's a resonance that people have that they ask me, hey, I need help around this. Can you assist me? My clients will literally ask me, I scratched my walnut floor. What should I do? I have to speak to the press. I need some help in how to make sure I'm ready for this. So literally all of the things. Some people call me a witch, which I totally think is fantastic. And there's a show on TV called Secession, I think, and there's a woman, I've only seen like one episode. And there's a woman on Secession that I guess helps them do all the things. And they say that's basically me. So I do that. Whatever you need, I'm there. That's what I do. Last year, we were in a pandemic. We are still in a pandemic. And a lot of things happened. So I want to talk about coming out. I want to talk about what that looks like. So many things happened last year. Besides the pandemic, we had a huge awakening of a large population of people in our country that weren't really clear on the fact that racism is alive and well and doing what it does best, morphing into all these different ways, right? And so people ended up having to come out in various ways, right? They had to come out being ignorant around the racial issues. They had to come out that they don't think there are racial issues. They had to come out in a multitude of ways. And I had to come out again. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. As a spiritual teacher and coach, this is a world where I had already gotten over being not straight. That's easy. I've been doing that since I was, 7 years old. But my psychic abilities were not things I talked about. I'm a medical intuitive. So if somebody is sick and they come and talk to me, I can tell you if they're going to die or not, or what the probability is. It's a weird gift, but it's true. I also can read people's minds. I only do it if you're paying me. It's not cool. There's ethics around that. I can tell you what you need to know. May not always be what you want to know, but I can let you know. It's how I coach. It's what I do. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance. I had never communicated all of those things to my clients because people look at that as kind of weird, or they don't believe you. And maybe on some level I don't know, why don't we say what we are, who we are? Why aren't we honest about what we do? What is the reason we hide anything and hold anything back? What are we afraid of? What is there to fear? So last year I made a point. I was like, you know, I'm done. I'm so done with hiding. I'm done. I'm tired. And I think we all got tired last year on some level. I got tired of the fact that people didn't know that this country is as fucked up as it is. I got tired of people wondering what to do, you know. At the same time, I was super excited at the same time because, well, finally, this is it. This is the revolution I've been waiting for. I want people to wake up. And then my cousin was murdered, George Floyd, who I'm related to. And that was interesting because it was really personal. I mean, it's personal anyway, but it was super personal. And then I realized, you know what? Nothing and no one is going to stop me from being all of who I am. Because even though I am unbelievably bold and out there in certain ways, I too had kept myself somewhat hidden in other ways. I might be out as far as my sexuality goes, but there are other places where I wasn't showing up as my true self, full self, completely integrated and completely open. And so I started telling people who I am and what I do. Since I've done that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happened. Since I communicated, yeah, I mean, yes, you can call me a witch. You can call me an oracle, whatever you want. I don't really care. My name is Aina. And I'm human, you know, and you're not going to take that away from me, regardless of all the other things that I do, because human allows me to be flawed, make mistakes, grow, learn, be tired, be annoyed, be irritated, be an asshole, all the things that are really fun, to be honest. So, but when I came out fully, right, telling my story to whomever without worrying about what anybody else was thinking or feeling about my story, I was able to do the work that I love to do, which is my calling, on a much grander scale. I was able to have more engagements where I'm speaking to people, to groups of people, where I was working with people that the leaders of places, because my work is best with people who are teaching other people or leading and guiding others, because I'm all about efficiency. And if I can get to the top mofo and help them be a nicer, kinder, more open human, then everybody benefits. And that's what I prefer. So my coming out fully of who I am has allowed me to give permission to others to do the same. And it's given me a freedom that there's nothing, it's priceless. There's nothing more delicious than that. It's also allowed me to be closer to my family in certain ways, family that I wasn't close to and we had issues. And it sounds like a fairy tale. It's not. Definitely been some like rough spots in the sense of having to move through my own issues, my own judgment around somebody else or family that wasn't super loving and kind in certain ways to me. Not for the sexuality stuff, just because people can be people. And I don't want to downplay, because I want to talk about this. I want you guys to ask some questions, but I don't want to downplay the fact that when you do hide who you are, one, you have a reason, right? And two, there are real repercussions to being who you are fully in our society, in our world. Some of them are losing a job, losing family, dealing with negative energy, you know, or dealing with the fact that you don't actually like who you are and you've judged whatever that is also. And so there's a lot that pushes you to stay in a box. But what I know, especially being a medical intuitive, what I know for a fact is that it doesn't breed anything but illness in so many different ways. And we're at a point now for a lot of us on this Zoom, in this forum, where we're getting older, right? And we're in this place of, as I was talking to Yarel earlier, we're in this place of aging parents. We're in the place of changing bodies. Maybe some of our relationships have ended or we're starting anew. Careers are different. Maybe children are leaving home. Things are happening in a way that are creating a lot of space to reevaluate what you've done thus far. And coming out is something that, whether it be about your sexuality or who you are, as far as like maybe you have gifts that you aren't communicating, or maybe you are an artist in a family of doctors or you are in a certain religion and been raised in a certain religion and you want to come out as something else, not, not at all religious, or you want to convert to something else, there are real repercussions to all of those things. And I think whenever we put one above another, right, that the sexuality stuff or the identification stuff as bigger than something else, we do everything and everyone a disservice. It's all hard. It's all hard. And compassion is key. And I think one of the best things about me being not straight is that I can understand and support everybody's journey in truth, because that's such a clear and obvious one. It's like, yeah, when you're not straight, we got all those cliches around what that looks like and what could happen. But there's so many other subtle ones, just like in the sense of me coming out as somebody who's psychic, which is, been unbelievably ridiculed. That idea that somebody could be has been ridiculed forever. So of course, that was a scarier potential, than somebody knowing that I had a girlfriend, truthfully. I think that that's an important thing to understand too. That anytime somebody stands up and says, I'm a Republican in a group full of Democrats, they are risking losing their head. And that is something that we need to understand. When people are speaking from a place of truth, that in and of itself needs to be honored and loved and appreciated. And once we do that, not just for others, but for ourselves, there's peace that can be had in a way that we've not seen it yet. But it has to happen in both directions. It has to happen in every direction. I want to know if there's any questions or comments, because I know it's getting a little bit late. A little bit. I think we still have a lot of time, but I want to make sure. Oh, Terry wants to know, did he acknowledge your rape? You can't imagine challenging him. No. Just talking about what happened in college. No, and truthfully, at the time, and this is something I think is important. This is even me saying that, right? It's a big deal because it's such a charged word. So my best friend who actually went to Trinity, she's a year younger than me. She graduated in 97. She's from Seattle. She was here. Her daughter was assaulted in high school, like I think 3 times. And she's like my niece. And so we're very close. It was a very devastating event that occurred. And I also want to tell you guys this, because you've already seen my bio. I was raped when I was 14. So when I was 14, my first sexual experience was rape, and that was an aggressive situation. But I want to say that when you're young and things like that are happening, it's really challenging to name it, And this is the 90s. It's hard to name it. Now we can name these things in a way that we weren't able to name it before. I knew what happened. I was very clear. But honestly, I was like, my mind was like, I do not want a child, and I want to get back I want to get in the first boat. Like that was my focus. This is not, I compartmentalized that, right? And so by the time I dealt with it, it wasn't anything that I really had a desire to have a conversation about necessarily. We've talked around it a little bit, but yeah, I think that the idea that everything has to be discussed is really a personal one, like you choose. There's no right and there's no wrong. It's only where you are and what you want and what you need. Yeah, and there was a gay alliance at Trinity a long time ago. I don't know what's there now. I have no idea. Let's see. Hey, are there any other questions about that? But were others judgmental of you? Sounds like there would be naysayers about your spiritual. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to make sure people understand, or if you have questions about, like, how do you create a space where you can be yourself and come out and live in your truth? Because I think that's the part that's the hardest. And this is not going to be sufficient because we're only talking for a short amount of time. First, you have to accept whatever it is true for you. You yourself. Once you have acknowledged whatever that is, yeah, you also need to acknowledge what judgments you have about that. So first, acknowledgement. Second, honest judgment. Like, how have you judged it? And if you have something, you know, and I say this to people all the time, if there's a feeling in you that something's not right in your life, please ask for assistance in getting it to come up, right? And it doesn't have to be another person. Ask for assistance. Universe, help me see what I'm not able to see. Yeah? Help me be open to what I'm not seeing or knowing that's going on for me. You can also ask a person. You can ask a coach. You can ask a therapist. I'm partial to coaches because I'm a coach. And the reason I am partial to coaches is because we're able to, we don't have the same regulations and indoctrination as therapists. And a lot of my clients are therapists, just so you're aware, because of the freedom that I have as a coach and what we can communicate and talk about. So once you've acknowledged the truth, and then you've also really allowed yourself to see where you've judged it, then you're going to do that test run of saying the truth out loud to someone that you trust, right? And then you're going to not judge their response. And that's the hardest part. You're going to let them be wherever the hell they are. If they hate you, they don't like you, they're not for it, whatever it may be, all of what is happening for them is as valid as what's happening for you. And once you extend the same sort of non-judgmental stance to others as you have to yourself, it's no longer as painful as it would be as if you took it personally. Remember, whenever you are coming out, you've had however long to figure out what that is. And whoever you're talking to hasn't. They're just learning it now. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be you're psychic, you want to be Muslim, you're converting to Judaism, or you are trans, whatever it is, right? So others aren't, and the idea that somebody hearing something for the first time should be graceful and gracious about it, when you yourself probably weren't for your own stuff, is like, we have a lot of expectations of others that are unreasonable. And so it's really about extending graciousness and love to others who are going through something for the first time about you. And maybe it shouldn't be something that they actually have any opinion about in your mind, but they do, you know? It's really up to you to respond to them in a way that's irresponsible, in the sense of, what do you want to put into the world? What do you want to share with the world? What do you want the world to end up being in the future? One of judgment and shame, or one of love and understanding? And if you want love and understanding, then you need to be loving and understanding. And so that's going to be the biggest sort of like push, is what are the things in your life? And this is the question I have for everybody, and you can answer this or not, whatever. What in your life have you not been honest about, and why? Who you are, you know? Like for me at this point, you know, anything you would ever want to know about me, I'm whatever, I'll let you know. I have no problem with it. And that's only because I've done a life review. I spent a lot of time going over my stories, going over my journeys, you know, and communicating about it. It's very helpful whenever you're coaching, because people have so many deep, dark secrets they think are so shameful, that once I tell them about my crazy shit, they're like, oh, mine aren't so bad. And so it's so helpful, you know, because it creates this arena of trust, you know. But nobody's been to my face negative about my clairvoyance or clairaudience or any of that stuff. But it was definitely challenging at first. I was nervous about it when I would say it, you know, like, oh God, they're gonna think I'm crazy or a weirdo. And that's the other part too, is if and when you communicate who you are to others, you're not doing it in a way that's asking for feedback. That's important. You know, it's not up for discussion. I am. You don't have to like it. You can. Either way, it isn't changing the truth, me. So, but that means you've got to be really solid in who you are communicating you are, you know?
Aina,
Yeah.
as people are processing and again, inviting to ask any questions or share their story. But I think what you said is important in the fact that the difference between us sharing who we are, maybe as an open book, you know, you ask me a question and I will answer it honestly, versus the need to disclose
Mhm.
for whatever reason. I mean, I think about that when I think about, okay, should I share such and such?
Mm. Yeah.
Why would I do that? You know, who would I be benefiting?
Mhm.
So it's having the courage to be your most authentic self, but at the same time, not feeling that I have to put myself out there, instead being able to invite the conversation.
And that's a personal choice, right? And every time we go into a space, we're deciding whether we feel safe or not. And I think that's another part that's, let's talk about the judgment really quickly. You have the right to not tell anybody anything that you don't want to tell them. It's really going to be about what makes the most sense for you. I'm going to always communicate to everyone that once you get to a point where you don't have judgments or fear around who you are or what the response is, that's a big ask. It's possible. It really is. But that's far along the journey. Until then, it's really going to be about being solid with who you are to yourself. If that never gets farther than there, just you're doing great. You really are. You don't have to say it to the world, right? Some people just, I mean, you don't necessarily want everybody in your business. But knowing how to be discerning around who you can talk to and who you can't is very, very important, right? And that's about being strategic and honest. If it's an environment where you know what you want from it, and you know this over here will not get you that, but you're not compromising your morals or your ethics, right? Because you got to go to sleep at night and be okay with yourself and you're feeling okay about it. That's the most important thing. This is about you going in here to find out what makes sense, as opposed to finding out what society tells you is the case, which I was talking about earlier, which is we all know that our society tells us a lot of things that are not at all resonant with the highest frequency or the highest vibration, right? And so recognizing, okay, do I want to deal with this? If I go and tell my entire family, because they're family members that I've never come out to, they've met girlfriends, but I've never said I am blah, 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 right? Because I don't feel like having a conversation with these people about whatever. They're not, that's not at all, but I'm not going to hide. And you can say whatever you want. That's one way of being. Another way of being is just not having people be as compartmentalizing various things. But I'll tell you that the freest you can become is proportional to the happiest you can be. And that's the truth. So there's a level where whatever your life is like right now, if it doesn't allow you the freedom of fully being who you are, and in a sense being somewhat transparent, at some point you will need to evaluate and reevaluate who's in your world. And if we're talking about family, because that's one that's obviously really hard. Like, how do you figure that out? Like your mother, your father, your brother, whoever it is, right? No one and nothing is hopeless. Yeah. And it's really going to be about you, again, feeling unbelievably set and confident and comfortable with yourself. People follow your lead. They do. And whenever you are leading with a confidence and a sense of certainty and assuredness, around who you are, it's really hard to hate that. It might not be fun. It might be annoying. People might decide not to deal with you. And that's what you have to understand. What are the repercussions? Are you willing to deal with those repercussions, right? Is it a job that you're going to lose? Is it a family member that you're going to lose? Did you have it to begin with if you aren't fully yourself? And weighing those things, I think, is the most important part. And then the idea that what you have right now in this holding yourself in certain places, in certain ways, the idea that that's the fullest life you can have is not true. And that's really the point I want to make is there's more out there. There's so much more out there. And I do challenge people to take that risk. You know, it could be baby steps or huge leaps, but there's so much on the outside of the box that we've allowed ourselves to be in because we're afraid of what people are going to say or think. Yeah, it's just, and I do recommend finding community that supports whatever it is that you are hiding or holding that you're not sharing, because there is nothing better than being yourself. There's nothing. You can't replicate it in any other way. And besides, that's what you came here for, you know, that's why we're all here. And we end up depriving others of so much beauty and joy when we aren't fully realized. And at the same time, if you choose not to be, choose that and absolutely be okay with it. Whatever your choice is, you know, it's very important. Yeah. Oh, you have a queer resource center at Trinity. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. How long has that been around? Does anybody know?
Melissa might be able to tell us.
So Terry says, do you mind if I say that? Terry, you mind if I talk about this? Everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. Pansexual. But a good friend pointed out that now we can say pansexual since it can be anyone, and saying those words have been empowering. Although I haven't said it as widely as I still need to. Yeah, and you will at some point. I mean, you know, there's no race, and you'll figure it out when it makes sense also. And sometimes it's just getting to the point where you're just tired of not being fully yourself. And you're just like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I have nothing to lose. It could be, you know, especially as we get older, it might be when people are aging out and passing on, and we don't feel that pressure of family. You know, it's totally natural for people to wait until they're in their 50s or 60s to finally do certain things that they didn't do before. And they didn't waste time. It wasn't a waste, you know, it was just what they were supposed to do. And knowing that you're in the right space and right place is also important, because the judgment, again, is really the part that creates a lot of havoc, for us to be happy. You know, we spend all this time being upset that we didn't do something sooner or a different way, as opposed to appreciating how we did it and when we did it, you know? Are there any other questions?
Well, I am thinking that we're going to stop recording in just a moment to allow for maybe that safety. So I just want to take these couple of minutes to just let you know that the next Women's Leadership Council programs are November 9th, which is in a couple of weeks, not next week, but the week after. And that one is called Unlock Your Gifts. And that is with Tanya Jones, class of 97. And then December 7th, to complete the wellness and self-care panel, we are going to bring back Sophie Wadsworth, class of 89, Eve Marie Perugini, and Tanya Jones to finish up the year. So I think that's going to be pretty powerful. And then just to let you know, the series that we're planning for next semester, and this is also an invitation for ideas as well as volunteering if you want to be part of the W.S.A. and part of our programming committee, is we're looking at issues facing women in work. And some of the topics that we're thinking of is called the Great Quit, work-life balance, imposter syndrome, deciding not to work outside the home, and returning to work. So please reach out to either myself or Melissa if you want to offer any ideas to build that next semester's programming. And finally, we're going to share your feedback in our post-event survey that you should be receiving in an email tomorrow. So at this point, what I'm going to do is stop recording, and then I am going to invite all of you as guests, and you can have your camera on or off, but it might also allow you to speak more freely. And with that, let me stop recording.